Greetings everyone, this is Don with Leather and Stitch Customs. This is another leather build. This is a Karlova design, the Uncle Cam's utility belt. Right off the bat, I need to let you guys know I didn't start this build video tutorial until about a few hours into the build. There are going to be some differences from mine versus hers, and the main difference is I added grommets to mine. Besides that, I pretty much did everything the way she did. I used a pecan tumbled shoulder that I picked up from Tandy. These are the grommets that I decided to use. I went with this brass tone. I picked up my buckle, the two-prong buckle. It's a 1 inch and 3/4 from the buckle guy. Also, when you set your grommets, if you decide to do grommets, her pattern does not have grommets, but if you decide to do it, you're going to need to put the grommets all the way through on both sides. And then if the leather is still quite not thick enough, I use a Chicago screw to put mine together. Now this portion here, I did mark on the inside where the straps are supposed to be sewn into place. It just makes it easier to follow along later on. Next up, I use double-sided sticky tape when it comes to putting in my zippers. It's just a lot easier for me. You don't have to wait for glue to dry, cement. It doesn't smell as much. And you can easily remove the adhesive portion of the double-sided sticky tape as well, which I'll show you here in a bit. Right here for my zipper stopper, you have the butt end of the leather within the track, and then I put a double stitch in the top 3 holes, which helps, keep it sealed into place. It's not going to go anywhere. So I just tie one simple knot, sometimes 2, cut it, and burn it. Next up for me, if you did double-sided sticky tape like I did, you can go ahead and remove that. And then sometimes, depending on the build, I'll actually leave it in place, especially when it doesn't stick out that much. Next up, we have our flaps for our pockets. Now, I am beveling mine, and I'm going to burnish mine. And then next up, I'll show you the difference between the 2 looks. And then after that, we'll go ahead and sew our flap into place, all 3 of our flaps into place. Right here, you'll see the difference between my beveled and burnished edges versus non. Next up, we'll go ahead and sew all 3 of our gussets to our front of our pockets. Also, if you haven't already done so, you want to go ahead and set your buttons for your pockets ahead of sewing your front end of your pocket to your gussets. And the front end of the pocket sews on top of the gusset itself. Alright, now that we have all of our gussets attached to our front panels of our pockets, our buttons are set, we're going to now stitch the pockets onto the front panel of the belt. And what you're going to do is when you start your stitch, you're going to start 1 hole down. So this is going to overlap here. It's going to overlap here, and it's also going to overlap on this side as well. So there's 40 holes here, and there's 38 holes on the gusset itself. So like I said, you're going to start 1 down on both sides with the overlapping stitch. Alright, so next up we're going to go ahead and sew in our flaps. The flaps sewing like this, grain to grain. And you can do the overlapping stitch once again. So the flap actually begins here, but you have your overlapping stitch on the outside hole just like you do here on your gussets. So once you sew all 3 of these in place, we'll move on to the next step. Next up, if you are a novice or a beginner of leatherwork, this is going to be clearly the most difficult portion of the build, which is putting in the lighter holder. The pattern, she gives you 2 different options for sizes. So if you leather wrap your lighter, there's a larger size that you want to do, and it doesn't change on the pattern itself. It only changes with the actual pocket itself. So you want to sew the pocket into place just like this on the bottom. And then slowly here, I did take several photos step by step. You can slow it down if you need to and look at each photo on how I thread my needle and thread through all the sewing holes. So hopefully this all makes sense to you. But you're gonna have to run the needle through the bottom end for like the first 2 to 3 holes, going back and forth. And so you'll run the needle through one layer, through the pocket, and back through the layer of the belt again, and then back through that pocket again. You are doing a saddle stitch here, so you're messing with 2 needles. But clearly, the stiffer your leather for your pocket, for the lighter pocket, the harder it's going to be for you to maneuver the leather for you to run the needle through. But like I said, I took several photos here so you can see it step by step on how I do it. And pretty much on the bottom 3, I run the needle back through the bottom of the pocket, and then for the remaining sewing holes, I run the needle through the very top. We are now going to sew in our straps along with the upper portion of our 2 belts, the front and the back of the belt. You can take a couple of rivets. Do not set them if you're using these cap rivets like I am. You don't have to set them. You can just put them in place so it holds your belt in place. And you still have movement with it. You can set the rivets later. Now, I want you guys to go ahead and sew in the top portions of your straps, because later on you can set them with the rivets between the front and the back panels of the belt. I did not sew mine in place. Only sewed all of the upper portion of my strap keepers in place afterwards. But you can go ahead and do yours now. And what you're going to do is you can fold it all the way over to the back side and then sew it into place. Now this part is going to be completely up to you guys. If you want to go ahead and set your hardware and put it into place like I have it here, you can. Right now I still need to put in my strap keeper for the belt on the buckle side, so I'm going to sew that into place. But if you decided to, you can go ahead and put all your hardware and everything into place. It's going to make it a little more difficult and heavier when you go to sew the upper portion of your belt into place, but that's fine. And then like I said, later on you can put a rivet setter between both layers and set your rivets. So right here, once again, I'm going to go ahead and put my rivets into place. And here you can set your rivets. Just make sure you have everything lined up appropriately, because if you don't, it's going to make it harder for your holes to be lined up. So if you decide, you can just put the rivets into place without setting them, so you can still have some maneuverability, and then start sewing, and then you can set it after you get past a certain point. Alright, now at this point, let's pretend our straps, the upper portion of our straps, are already sewn into place, along with the upper section of the belt. This is what you go through as far as setting your hardware. I put my O-ring in. Right there is where it would have sewn into place. Then here's where my hoof pick goes into place, and its keeper, and the strap for it. I already have my sand brown button glued into place. First of all, you want to put down the strap keeper for the hoof pick. It goes down on the bottom against the belt. And then you fold the bottom portion of the hoof pick keep. So there you have the layer of the belt, you have the strap for the hoof pick, and then you have the keeper for the hoof pick. And you have 4 layers of leather. And then, like I said, this is already sewn into place if you did it like I said earlier, so you don't have to worry about that. Now I can go ahead and set this rivet. And then I'll move it down to my strap keeper for our lobster clasp swivel hook. And this is self-explanatory as well. Remember, this is already sewn into place if you did, like I told you to earlier. And you have 3 layers of leather that the rivet is going through. You set that. And there you go. Now that we've completed the top stitch, only thing left is the bottom, and we are done. See you at the end.